Welcome back to data analysis with Python and Pandas. For this week, our learning objectives are create and reset index, sort data by one or more columns, and rename columns. The data that we're going to work with is the marks data. It's an Excel file that contains student marks from different grades. So the first thing we're going to do is go to Azure Notebooks and then create a new project. Let's call this week 6. We're going to upload the data file. I'm going to put the data file for you in Microsoft Teams. It's the marks Excel file. And then let's create a new notebook. Again, week 6, just for simplicity. Now let's open the data file. As always, we start with import pandas as pd data equals pd dot read Excel, and then the data file. Which is this one. Let's look at the first 5 rows. Sorry, marks.xlsx. This is our data. Now the first thing we're starting with is indexes. What's an index? In its simplest form, an index is this column. It's not part of the data, but it's an extra column called column 0, okay, which is right here, the first column. Now this column is not part of the data, but it's added to the data every time you open a data file. The reason why we use this index is for making searching of large data faster. Okay, as we've seen before, for example, if you want to display some rows, you can say to 9, for example. Okay. So these 2 and 9, these are the index values. So we're starting with row number 2, okay, which is this one. It's actually for student number 3, but this is the index of that row, okay, up to row 8. This is like 8 plus 1, okay, so this 9 is not included. And again, we've used this index in the lock and iLock, which I'm not going to go into, but indexes again are used to speed up searching of large data. Okay, now what if we want to change this index? We don't want to use this. We want to use the student ID as an index. How do we do that? Simply you just say data dot set index, and then the name of the column that you're going to make the index. In this case, let's say SID. Okay, and to make sure that this index is saved, in place equals true. Let's do this, and then let's look at the data one more time. So what you see now is that there's no more extra column here on the left side. Okay, and because the index now is the student ID, we see the student IDs all in bold. So usually the index is in bold. Right here the index is this column number 0. Okay, same thing here, but when we change the index to the student ID, now the student ID column is in bold. Okay, now so if we want to search data, for example, or to display certain rows, when we say 1 2 3, it's going to display, the first 2, or the second and third rows, because row 0 is the first row. Okay, all right. Now what if we want to change the index back to its original column? Then we can say data dot reset index. All right, and then you don't have to specify which column is the index, because you're actually removing the index. Okay, or you're resetting the index to its original column. All you have to say is just in place equals true to save the new index. Okay, now let's see if that did it. So now we can see that the index is back to its original column, which is column number 0. Okay, that's all about indexes. Let's move on to sorting or renaming columns. I think we're going to start with sorting. For now, the data, I think it's sorted by student ID. If we want to sort it by a different column, what you can do is data.sort values. Okay, the name of the column in square brackets. In this case, let's say S name, and then which way you want to sort. Ascending equals true, means from A to Z. If it was numbers, from smallest to largest, that's what ascending. The opposite is ascending equals false. And let's see if that data.sort values S name should be capital N. Okay, so now the data is sorted by the first, or the student name, A, and then B, F, H, J. Okay, what if we want to sort by more than one column? Let's say by the grades and then by the student name. So we want to display all students, in a certain grade, then the other grade, and then in each grade by student name. Data dot sort values. Here we have to specify 2 columns or more than 2 columns if we want. The first column, let's say it's grade. Make sure that you're using the right column name, and then S name, and then ascending, because we're sorting by 2 columns, you have to specify, let's say the grades going down from grade 12 to grade 1, so that would be false for ascending. And then the student names ascending, that would be true. So false here means descending, and true here means ascending. Okay, and let's see what happens. So as you can see, we have grade 12, and then in grade 12 we have the student names sorted by, in ascending order, H and then K, and then grade 11 A, M, Y, and then grade 10 F, J, S, and then grade 9, and so forth. Okay, so again, if you want to sort by one column, you can do that. If you want to sort by more than one column, again, you can do that, but then you have to specify ascending order for 2 columns. Okay, you can sort by more than 2 columns if you want. Now the last thing we're going to do is change column names. Let's look at the data one more time. So as you can see, we have these column names: SID, SName, grade, section. Let's change the first 2 columns. Okay, how do we change column names? Data dot rename, and then you say columns equal, between curly brackets, each column, the old name and the new name, all between double quotations. So for example, SID is the old name. I want to make that student ID. Make sure to include it in double quotation. That's the first column. And then another column, the old name is SName, the new name is student name. Okay, and then to make sure that the changes are finalized or saved, in place equals true. Let's try that. In place with an N, last time I checked. Okay, now we don't know what happens, so you have to look at the data one more time. Some students, think that if you don't get something, that means something is wrong. If you don't get result, no. Some commands you have to, run the command and then look at the data. See if it was committed. Okay, so we have student ID, student name. Okay, so we were successful in changing the column names. And that's it for today's session. So what we did was learn 3 things. Learned what an index is, why an index is used and how it's used. Of course, it's used to speed up searching large data files. It's usually the column number 0, which is not part of the actual data. It's added when you open a data file. We learned how to change the index to one of the columns and how to remove the index back to its original column. Okay. We learned how to sort a data file by a certain column, just like we did here, or by more than one column, just like we did here. And last thing we did was learn how to change column names. You can change 1 column name, 2 column names, or as many as you want in the same command. And as always, we use in place equals true to save the changes that we're making. Otherwise, the changes will be temporary. So next time you open the file or do something, those changes will not be there. Okay? And that's it for today. Stay safe and goodbye.